Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Monsi, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking to you about all the books that I read in the month of April. So in total, I read 5 books, which is pretty standard for me. I felt like I was reading a decent amount. I'm hoping that I don't come off overly negative in this video because for the most part, I didn't really enjoy the books that I read. There was one that I really like and one that I'm going to recommend at the end of this video, but for the most part, it was a pretty meh reading month, and I don't know if it was just me or I just wasn't picking the right books, but let's discuss. So I started off the month reading None of This Is True by Jewell. This is a thriller that's been pretty hyped in the last year, and I chose to read it on a road trip that I was going on. So I had a 6-hour drive both ways, and I just wanted something quick and fast-paced that would hold my attention and make the drive go by quicker. It really did make the time fly by, and for that I am grateful. However, I did end up giving this a 2 out of 5 stars, and I think it's been my least favorite read of the year so far. So let me tell you why. We start off the book meeting our 2 main characters, Josie Fair and Alex Summer. They end up meeting at this restaurant on the night of both of their birthdays. So we find out through them meeting that they share the same birthday, they're also the exact same age, and they were born at the same hospital. Alex Summers is a famous podcast host, and Josie feels like she has a really unique, interesting story to tell. So a few days later, Josie approaches Alex and asks her to do like a whole interview series on her life story. Alex feels that Josie's story is compelling enough, and so they embark on this journey, and the book ends up being part dual perspective between Josie and Alex, and then also part podcast. I personally don't think that what I'm about to say is a spoiler, but if you're sensitive to that, you can skip ahead. The whole birthday twin thing. The whole time I was reading this book, I thought that there was gonna be something more to that. I thought that we were gonna come full circle and find out that these 2 girls had known each other at birth. I don't know, something crazy like that. But it was never mentioned again, other than them having met each other in that way. Like, what? What was the point in the author even introducing the 2 characters like that if there wasn't going to be something more to it? That really bothered me. But just so you know, going into this book, the birthday twin thing doesn't mean really anything. It was just a way for the 2 of them to meet. I felt like they could have met by bumping into each other on the street and Josie recognizing Alex as a famous podcast host. They did not have to be birthday twins, okay? So just know that that has nothing at all whatsoever to do with the mystery at hand. Anyway, they start to do this podcast series together, and Josie goes to Alex's home because that's where Alex has her studio, and that's where they record all of their interview sessions. I personally never understood why Alex chose to invite this random ass woman into her home, particularly when Josie started demonstrating some pretty significant red flags. For me, there had to be a huge suspension of disbelief because in no way would anyone in their right mind continue to welcome Josie into their home. And then the ending of the book just fell super flat for me. I've read another book by Jewell, and the thing with her is that the book always seems to end exactly the way that you expected it would. There's never any great plot twist. You're never caught by surprise. It's just kind of like, here you go. It's what you anticipated this entire time. And Jewell's books always end up like that. And she does a really good job of writing really unsettling storylines that keep you wanting more, but the result is just super dissatisfying for me. I am very unlikely to pick up any more Jewell books in my future. The next book that I read is The Grace Year by Liggett. This is a YA dystopian novel that has also received quite a bit of hype in the last couple of years, and it is about this society where women are believed to have this magical power that develops when they turn 16. And this power that women have basically is able to manipulate men into wrongdoings because, of course, whenever men misbehave, it's the woman's fault. right? And so in this community, every year, all the girls who have turned 16 are banished to this compound for a full year to kind of survive on their own in the wild with the purpose of expelling this magic that they hold. And then after this year has been completed, they're supposed to return to the community and either start their lives as wives with the men who have claimed them, of course, or start their work as laborers in different industries. And we, as the reader, are following a very specific character, Tiffany, as she enters her grace year, and we're just kind of witnessing her experience during this time. I was definitely sold by this premise, but there were a few things that didn't work for me. Number one, the world building was just non-existent pretty much. We don't know how the society came to be, and we also don't know how it's structured, which I definitely wanted to know more about. And then once we enter the grace year, the story becomes very disjointed and very fever dreamy, which it's supposed to be, but again, like, that's not personally my thing. If you like that, then you might like this, but I don't like that kind of story, so I really didn't enjoy the way that the story was written. I also didn't have a very good understanding of the lay of the land in the compound, and so when things were taking place like outside the boundaries of the compound or within the compound, I didn't understand where that boundary actually was, and you kind of need to understand that to follow along with the story. So I was pretty confused for parts of it, and I definitely found myself skimming parts of the story because I wanted to know what happened, but I didn't want to devote that much time to figure out what was going to happen. So yeah, overall this is just a 3 out of 5 stars for me. Very middle of the road, very fine. I feel like if you're interested in the feminist undertones or like the dystopian setting, you might as well just read the books that this book drew inspiration from. So books like The Hunger Games, Lord of the Flies, and Handmaid's Tale, I feel like those books did it much better. After that, I read The Women by Kristin and I did a whole reading vlog on it. This was my most anticipated read of 2024. I absolutely love Kristin Hanna's historical fiction books, and so I was really excited to read this one. This book in particular takes place during the Vietnam War, and it's centered around the women who were involved in the Vietnam War. I was really interested in learning more about this particular historical setting because I don't know very much about the Vietnam War, but this book too was a little disappointing for me, and I cannot believe I'm saying that. It is the first Kristin Hanna book that I'm rating anything below a 4.5. So in this story, we are following Frankie McGrath, who comes from a very wealthy California family, and she decides to enlist in the war as an army nurse. So for the first 40 to 50% of the book, we're actually in Vietnam following Frankie as she's living out her life as a nurse in the war. And this was the part of the story that I liked the least. I talk about this in my reading vlog, but basically we just see a number of tragedies one after the other without really having any room to breathe in the middle, and so it really lost emotional impact for me. I really wish that the book had focused on just a select few tragedies and we had really built up to it and then had time to sit with it after so we could really feel that emotional impact of what was happening. While Frankie is in the war, she befriends 2 other nurses, and I really wanted to hear more of their story, but throughout the whole book we only ever get Frankie's perspective, and I thought that the book as a whole would have been strengthened if we had gotten the perspectives of those 2 other women as well. Then we see Frankie return from the war and the reaction that the American public has to veterans returning from the Vietnam War, and Frankie going through PTSD and that sort of thing. And that part was really interesting to me. I did actually enjoy that quite a bit, but even through that storyline, there were a bunch of romantic subplots woven through that I didn't feel needed to be there, and so that took away from my enjoyment of the second half of the book. Ultimately, I gave it a 3 out of 5. It was totally fine. I think that some people would really enjoy it. In fact, I know some people really enjoy it. I think most people have rated this a 5 stars. It has a 4.7 rating on Goodreads, which is off the charts, just an incredible rating. So don't listen to me. Make your own decision, watch other people's videos who have done reviews on the book and see whether you want to pick it up yourself or not. And then I listened to Untamed by Glennon Doyle. This was also on my physical TBR, so happy to have checked one off that list. I mostly listened to the book, but I did pick up the physical copy occasionally just when I felt like I had missed something while listening. This is a memoir by Glennon Doyle, and I don't know exactly how Glennon Doyle originally rose rose to fame, but she was already pretty well known by the time that she wrote this memoir, and she had written a couple of memoirs before, I believe. But this book is about Glennon's journey as she decides to leave her husband for a woman. And her whole message with this book is that you need to live out your truth and not live your life according to societal expectations. So I really liked the underlying message of this book, which is why I wanted to pick it up. I read a lot of memoirs, a lot of memoirs. They're some of my favorite books to read. And what I prefer in a memoir is about 80% anecdote, 20% reflection. Because if a memoir leans too heavy into the reflection side, it starts to come off as a self-help book to me, which is not why I'm picking up a memoir in the first place. To me, Untamed read 50% anecdote, 50% self-reflection. And a lot of the self-reflection was Glennon Doyle repeatedly beating me over the head with the point of her book, which is to honor yourself. And while I really appreciate that message, like I said, I don't really want to be preached to about it. You know what I mean? So I really wish that she had shared more of her experiences in this book because I really did enjoy reading about those. There's also a random chapter about racism in the book, and I felt like it was inserted there completely out of nowhere. It really didn't fit with the rest of the narrative, and I kind of felt like Glennon Doyle was just trying to let all of us know that she does anti-racist work and like wanted a pat on the back for it kind of thing. And the last thing I'll say is that Glennon Doyle a couple of times mentions Botox and how she used to use Botox but no longer uses Botox because that was internalized misogyny on her part. And it kind of comes off like she's shaming any woman who chooses to undergo cosmetic procedures, which I do not subscribe to. I do not believe that anyone who chooses to alter their appearance in some way is always doing it to cater to men. Sometimes it really is just for yourself, and Glennon Doyle really puts down women who choose to get Botox, and I just did not like that. And I haven't gotten Botox, I haven't gotten any cosmetic procedures, but I might. And if I do, it is certainly not because I'm trying to appease anyone in my life other than myself. So really didn't agree with anything that she had to say about Botox. I don't really rate memoirs, but this would probably be like a 3-ish stars if I had to. I don't necessarily recommend it, but I think some people really love it, so to each their own. And then to round off the month of April, I ended up reading my favorite book of the month, which is Betty by Tiffany McDaniel. The author wrote this book based off of her own mother, Betty, so it has a lot of realism to it. It is about Betty's upbringing in a mixed race family. Her father, Landon, is Cherokee Indian and her mom, Alka, is white. And it's just about the family's experience in Appalachia, Ohio, and the discrimination that they face within their community, and also the different violent ongoings within the family itself. Betty is one of 8 children in total, and you get to see her relationship with her siblings and her relationship with her parents. Landon is a gem of a human being, the sweetest man. I really wanted to know more of his personal story. He was just the best dad, and I wanted to know how he was raised and how his experiences shaped him into the type of parent that he became. He was just an exceptional character, and I really wanted to know more of his story, which is why this book probably isn't a full 5 stars for me. But it was just a beautiful story, really heartbreaking. A lot of tragic things happen, so you need to know that going into the book. But I would recommend this to anyone. I think for a lot of people, this would be a 5 stars, and rightly so. For me, it ended up being a 4 out of 5 stars, and I don't know exactly why that is, but it just didn't give me that full 5-star feeling. Still really enjoyed it, still would definitely recommend if you find the storyline interesting at all. And that's everything that I read. If you have read any of these books and you have your own opinions that differ from mine, please let me know down below. I'd love to hear it. I have already picked up my first book for the month of May, and I'm thinking that it's going to be a 5-star read, so you can look forward to hearing about that in my May wrap up. And with that being said, I will leave you be. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.